let's watch this. The Tyre Nichols story is a sad one, but unfortunately an all too common one. The uncommon part about it is that all 5 officers that were a part of Tyre Nichols' brutal murder, were subsequently fired and now are charged with murder and kidnapping. That is the uncommon part of this all too common story. I have not seen the video, but I assume it has to be devastating for Memphis, to the Memphis Police Department to act so quickly. News Channel 5 has obtained a letter sent by the Tennessee Sheriff's Association to the National Sheriff's Association notifying law enforcement agencies that videos relating to the arrest of Tyre Nichols will be made public on Friday. Cities are gearing up for riots, as a matter of fact, because of how fucking awful this story is.
This is a CBS News special report. I'm Nora O'Donnell. We are coming on the air as the city of Memphis and the country is on edge after the violent arrest that led to the death of 29-year-old Tyre Nichols. Just today, the 5 now former Memphis officers involved were charged with second-degree murder, kidnapping, and other charges. As you can see, we are waiting to hear from the Shelby County, Tennessee District Attorney. He's going to give an update on the investigation. There is video of the traffic stop, and it is expected to be released relatively soon. We're just learning that. Also, the Nichols family has seen that footage. The DA is saying today there are multiple sources of video from Nichols' first and second encounter with police. It is approximately an hour in length. Let's listen in now to that press conference.
As you know, on January 7th, there was an encounter between 29-year-old Tyre Nichols and former MPD officers. Immediately upon learning about this, DA Mulroy, Shelby County District Attorney DA Mulroy, enlisted the assistance of the TBI to determine if excessive force had been used. And since then, the DA's office has worked with TBI, and we will continue to do so. Today, you will hear from DA Mulroy along with the director of TBI, David Rouse. And so I want to just make it very clear and ask for your understanding that this is still an ongoing investigation. And so for that reason, there are limits to some of the things and some of the questions that we can answer. So we ask for your understanding as it relates to that. And I will turn it over to DA Mulroy. And did I mention that we will take questions after, but we have a really limited amount of time. So thank you.
Thank you, Erica. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming. I'm joined today, as Ms. Williams has already said, with the director of the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, David Roush, as well as Assistant Director Josh Melton. I'm also joined by other members of my staff, including Ernest Brooks, Ray Lapone, Gerald Scangan, but then also, most relevant for today, the trial team in the Tyre Nichols case, including Paul Hagerman and Tanisha Johnson. Another member of the trial team, Melanie Headley, is unavailable. We're here today because of a tragedy that wounds one family deeply, but also hurts us all: the death of Tyre Nichols. We understand and acknowledge the grief that the friends and family of Tyre Nichols are experiencing right now, as well as the great concern throughout all of Memphis and Shelby County about this case. We met several times this week with the family of Tyre Nichols. They described an almost perfect son, a cheerful and happy person who enjoyed skateboarding and sunsets over Shelby Farms Park. We're grateful to the family of Tyre Nichols for their patience as we expedited both the investigation and the consideration of charges in this case, as well as the understanding on the part of the family that premature release of the video could compromise both.
No, they wanted to.
And we did.
They wanted to. The video has to be so fucking damning, which is not surprising because many videos are damning. Most police interactions that end up with the death of a suspect, of a victim, is usually very damning. But this one has to be additionally worse, partially because they used bludgeoning objects and tasers and shit, less than lethal weapons, rather than just like immediately mag dumping into him. So much so that, and apparently it's an hour long, which I don't even know what the fuck they did, and I don't even want to think about it, that they immediately fired these guys. Okay? It's 5 black cops in Memphis stopping Tyre Nichols on a regular traffic violation and brutalizing him so much that he dies 3 days later. He's hospitalized and he dies 3 days later in the hospital. He was beaten to death. The family said that it was, the family that has seen the footage said that it was worse than Emmett Till. As he was calling for his mother, asking what did he do. Yeah, supposedly they beat him like a piñata, according to the family. And the video will be coming out, of course, at the end of the news week on Friday night. They say that he was left unrecognizable in the aftermath of this. And you know, none of us have seen the video yet, but if there's one thing I know in all of my years of covering police brutality, covering the news in the United States of America, it's that cops rarely ever see accountability. Derek Chauvin was a unique case specifically because of the accountability, right? Broad daylight execution and the subsequent legal accountability that came. Cops usually just go on paid administrative leave, desk duty, yada yada. When murder is seen as a part of their job, the entire system is designed to protect them. When they do engage in escalation, and they do it often, they do it frequently, and you rarely ever see cops. I've never seen cops get fired this fast. Never. In the past decade of covering news, police brutality, I've never seen cops ever get fired. All 5 of the cops involved get fired before the body camera footage is released. Okay? A week before they release the body camera footage, they don't even hold up the body camera footage. Usually they, the routine process, the modus operandi here is never releasing the body camera footage, never even showing it to the family, claiming that it's gone, claiming that it's lost in the sauce. Okay? It was held up. Tyre was killed 3 weeks ago. Yes, they held it up to conduct an investigation and fire them. Not to hold it up without conducting an investigation or without conducting a false investigation and not charging them or firing them. Usually the reason why they hold up the footage is because they want the temperament to die out. They want the story to die out while they shelter the offending officers. I've never, ever seen 5 cops get fired and charged with murder and kidnapping before the body camera footage comes out only a month later. It's crazy.
Work quickly to expedite this investigation because of the extraordinary nature of the case. Compared to the average investigation and prosecution decisions in a case like this, we worked swiftly, but also fairly, and most importantly, in a way calculated to ensure that we have a strong case. As you might have heard from Ms. Williams, in this case and any other officer-involved fatality case, I immediately called in the TBI so that we could have an independent investigation. I also assigned to the newly created Justice Review Unit within my office, which works independently and separately both from law enforcement and the rest of my staff, to make a truly objective recommendation about whether criminal charges were appropriate. I want to thank the TBI, the Justice Review Unit, and the trial team for working swiftly but thoroughly under very difficult conditions. Earlier today, the grand jury returned indictments against 5 former Memphis Police Department officers regarding the death of Tyre Nichols. These are the same 5 officers who were previously...
It's like we're in fucking bizarro world. Like, they're showing the officers as the perps. They're perp walking the officers, and they're showing footage of the victim of the police brutality, like skateboarding and shit, talking about him as actually a victim. It is so sad that this is what is supposed to happen, okay? In a just world, in a normal world, in a world where, like, you know, there is real justice. This is how it's supposed to happen. Do I, like, the fact that they're showing the cops out of uniform with their mugshots, I don't know if it's because they're black, okay? Because I'm sure that plays a role into it. Like, it has to. Even though being black does not make you a better cop, you are still a police officer. A fact that I mention so regularly. I hope people understand this when I say this. Okay? But it is wild that they're not showing them in police garb. Like, this is the system giving them up. The system that normally, the police unions that would normally, the sheriff's associations, the police unions that would normally defend these people down to the fucking core because their actions are seen as justifiable and expected by the police, which has the monopoly of violence, which exercises the state's monopoly of violence in every interaction, immediately drop them. Please don't be naive. What? Hassan, don't be naive because they're black? No. I'm saying them being black plays a role in this, certainly. But being black does not change the dynamic of being a police officer. Sorry. It's 100% true because black police officers are still enforcing white supremacist constructs in black neighborhoods. Okay? That police department is the perfect liberal police department. It's overwhelmingly black, so the cops look like the people that they're supposed to be enforcing, which is what liberals say all the fucking time. Okay? There is a civilian jurisdiction board or whatever. Like, they have some form of like civilians... some form a civilian advisory board, some form of like civilian community policing is happening here, supposedly. And yet you have 5 officers who still beat a man to death over a routine traffic stop. Yes, Memphis is 64% black, and the police department in Memphis is like, I think 50% black or something, you know, which is infinitely higher. As far as a percentage of black officers, it's like one of the blackest police departments in the country, pretty much.
Previously or recently terminated by the Memphis Police Department. They are currently in custody. They are Tadarius Bean, Demetrius Haley, Emmett Martin III, Desmond Mills Jr., and Justin Smith. The grand jury returned indictments against all 5 with the same charges. And we had previously met with the family of Tyre Nichols to go over what these charges were going to be. And that meeting with the family, I think, went rather well. Here are the charges. Second-degree murder.
I've never seen
aggravated
this.
Assault. Aggravated kidnapping resulting in bodily injury, aggravated kidnapping involving the possession of a weapon, official misconduct through unauthorized exercise of power, official misconduct through failure to act when there is a duty imposed by law, and official...
Being black doesn't change the fact that they murder someone as cops. Cops bleed blue. Hasanabi, fuck making excuses for them after they kill someone. What do you mean at Hasanabi? I'm saying that. You must be talking to chat, I guess, nice bathroom, because I'm literally saying that. Black cops are still soldiers of a white supremacist criminal justice system, and they absolutely operate under those same social constructs they are soldiers for the white supremacist system. They are acting out the white supremacist desires of said system. That's it. They're cops first. They probably thought that they would be seen as cops first by the Brotherhood of the Blue, and depending on the video itself, it could be two reasons. Like, either they gave them up because they're black, or they gave them up because they're black, and more importantly, perhaps, the video is additionally brutal. Because there are instances where black cops are still defended. Like one I can think of historically, where a police officer actually immediately was brought charges upon, was Mohammed Noor, a black police officer in Minneapolis, as a matter of fact. He was given up by the police department. He was black. His victim in that circumstance was an Australian woman, a white blonde lady. That was the victim. So that was definitely a big no-no. And they held on to Derek Chauvin to a certain degree, way more than they did to Mohammed Noor, way more than they did here. But that does not change the reality that black cops throughout history have also been defended. Okay? So it has to be that the video is so indefensible and so brutal that they are dropping these guys. It's a combination of multiple factors, I think. As sad as this is, maybe this can be a learning moment for America. Fuck no. This will never be a learning moment for America. I'm sorry, but you, Norbro, have Norwegian brain rot and are naive when you think about this. Every person is going to use this as an opportunity to continue their awful, unproductive, racist, agitated propaganda. People will say, I'm doing this right now, except this is agitated propaganda in the right direction. Because there are unjustifiable hierarchies and there is racism firmly planted in the criminal justice system, especially so. Okay? Meanwhile, the right, I suspect, will look at this and say, black on black violence. They'll use terms that they never have used when describing cops, specifically because it's like, black police officers. Okay? And most likely behave in a way that is inconsistent with how they behave when the police officer is white.
Oppression.
I gotta pee. I'll be back in a second.
Each of the 5 individuals played a different role in the incident in question. The actions of all of them resulted in the death of Tyre Nichols, and they are all responsible. It's important to note, as Ms. Williams said, that this is still an ongoing investigation, and therefore there are limits on what we can say about this case. We ask for everyone's continued patience as we continue to vigorously seek justice in this case. We also know that the public is very concerned about whether they can see the video about this incident and the timing of the release of this, the video of this incident. I have been in regular contact with the city of Memphis, the custodian of that record, and I can tell you that the city will be releasing the video sometime after 6 p.m. Friday, tomorrow, and that the city of Memphis should be making a statement somewhat later on this afternoon regarding the timing of that release. Let me close by saying, both to the family of Tyre Nichols and to the broader community here in Memphis and Shelby County, we all want the same thing. We want justice for Tyre Nichols. It's my hope that if there is any silver lining to be drawn from this very dark cloud, it's that perhaps this incident can open a broader conversation about the need for police reform. The world is watching us, and we need to show the world what lessons we can learn from this tragedy. I'm hopeful that we can show them who I know us to be. A community working towards positive change here in Memphis and Shelby County. With that, let me ask.
Oh, there was more. Oh, I forgot. The other part of it is like the DOJ and FBI literally immediately opened up a civil rights investigation, which does happen. Okay, the DOJ does do this, and they do find like rampant racism every single time, surprisingly, in every single department that they've ever investigated, from Baltimore to Ferguson, right? And of course, no changes come from that, clearly, obviously. And our legislators refuse to do anything about it, obviously. So we shall see what happens in the aftermath of this. But if you think that the Democrats are going to wisen up and use police brutality as a political motivator, you're out of your fucking mind, especially as they spent the past goddamn year capitulating to psychotic right-wing media, claiming every fucking day that the police were defunded, that every fucking day that police were actually not doing their jobs because they just didn't have enough money, that not even that, but they weren't doing their jobs because they felt bad, that they were being bullied by the citizenry that funds them, okay? And, you know, just get ready, get excited for the prospect of that. Get excited for the prospect of the Democrats saying, oh, yeah, we do care about police reform. It can't wait, which was bullshit to begin with.
Director Roush to step forward.
Thank you, D.A. Mulder. Good afternoon. I'm David Roush, Director of the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. First and foremost, and most importantly, on behalf of the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, I want to extend my deepest condolences to the family and friends of Tyre Nichols. My prayer is that God will wrap his comforting arms around you and keep you during this very difficult time. We can't imagine.
Yeah, look, they're literally out here begging, doing everything they can to stop a rebellion. This comes just a day before the video of even the cop described heinous, reckless, inhumane, failing of basic humanity murder of Tyre Nichols by 5 Memphis cops. Dude, if you're this afraid of fucking people burning cities down, perhaps you should make systemic change. Perhaps you should implement accountability. You know what I mean? This kind of fucking bullshit, like after being afraid of the human reaction to such senseless systemic violence is not going to keep moving the needle. What the fuck are we doing? I'm sorry, but this is absolutely fucking bananas, dude. How? What do you expect? More, dude. 2022 was a particularly brutal year for police, okay? Particularly brutal. Over 1,000 confirmed kills on the job. What the fuck are they doing? Their funds have only increased. In that process, as they constantly claimed that defunding was happening, the crime narrative was made permanent by all the way from local news to national news. It became a fixture in the Democratic Party's platform of like also funding the police more, as they raced. Both parties raced to be like, no, we love the cops more. We will hug and kiss them. It's insane. I feel like people who are surprised that the cops are who did this are black are about to learn a part of the talk that my parents are always emphasize. The race of a cop is cop. Never be under the illusion that a black cop is less likely to brutalize you or kill you. My interaction with black cops have always been as potentially fraught as my interaction with white ones. At no point does help a brother outwork, because if they really were trying to help me, they wouldn't have stopped me in the first place. People noticing how quickly these black cops were charged as opposed to their murderous white fellows in other situations should also pay attention to how silent the police union has been on their behalf. Yeah. This Memphis video of the lynching of Tyre Nichols must be awful. Basically, everybody who's seen it is like, please don't riot when you see this, like you probably should. I've never seen a reaction like that. Yeah, I think like, I think it's bad. I don't know what else to say. I mean, they literally are doing PR ahead of the.
This is not just a professional face. This is not.
Gotta take 5. Just for Tyre Nichols, Justice Tyre, Memphis Police Chief C.J. Davis addressing the heinous beating of Tyre Nichols. This is not just a professional failing. This is a failing of basic humanity towards another individual. The incident was heinous, reckless, and inhumane.
Not just a professional failing. This is a failing of basic humanity toward another individual. This incident was heinous, reckless, and inhumane. And in the vein of transparency, when the video is released in the coming days, you will see this for yourselves. I expect you to feel.
They're pulling a "we're in this with you." Like, oh man, I'm so shocked that this happened. They're literally pulling a "we're all in this together, guys. Come on." Ahead of time. Holy fuck, dude. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if this reaction is because like the video is particularly egregious, heinous, awful, or if it's because like it's now become this like weird cycle of expected reaction, oftentimes like property damage that happens as a consequence of like police inaction, or sorry, systemic inaction in the form of accountability in the face of police escalation of violence and murders. I don't know. I just, maybe all of the above. But the video is coming out tomorrow.
What the Nichols family feels. I expect you to feel outrage in the disregard of basic human rights, as our police officers have taken an oath to do the opposite of what transpired on the video. This is not just a
Meanwhile, Tennessee state reps are trying to make bail funds illegal. This looks like an accurate breakdown of Representative Charlie Baum ALEC bill, which will make it harder for people to get bailed out of jail, particularly protesters. It targets bail funds, yet makes an exception for churches. Huh. That's interesting. I want to bail out Bob. Are you a member of Bob's family, either by blood or marriage or adoption? No. Are you a nonprofit? Yes. Is your nonprofit organized for the purpose of religious worship? Yes. Are you a nonprofit? No. Get lost, lefty woke, do-gooder. District attorney talked to CNN.
Come on in, sir. Thank you. Good.
Holy fuck. Is that Don Lemon out in Memphis? Oh, Jesus. Okay. Everyone is gearing up for major activity. CNN does not fucking send out Don Lemon to the fucking scene unless they think some shit is about to fucking pop off for the next week.
Steve Mulroy. We appreciate you joining us here on CNN. We have gotten word and also confirmation from the attorney and through court records that the officers have been charged. Can you speak to us about the charges? The family had wanted first-degree murder charges. That does not appear to be the case.
Right. So there are charges, and I'm going to announce them at the press conference in a few minutes. I'd rather not go into too much detail, but it is the case that there are charges, and the grand jury returned indictments, and we'll be announcing all the details in a few minutes.
Yeah, all 5 officers, we're getting confirmation, have surrendered. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
All 5 officers have surrendered. There are, for some of the charges, some base different charges, or the same charges, but different counts or more counts than others. Can you explain that to us? Why is that?
Well, I really can't confirm that's the case.
You can't confirm that's the case. Is that just possibly a mistake there?
I think it might be, yeah.
That's so. Okay, well, let's go over the charges here. I want to ask you about them, and you can respond to whatever you can respond.
Okay.
Second-degree murder, aggravated assault, 2 charges of aggravated kidnapping. What is that? That seems unusual. Aggravated kidnapping?
Yeah, and I will go over this if there's a question about it at the press conference, but I don't mind telling you right now that aggravated kidnapping is a general matter, is any time that you unlawfully restrain someone's liberty or confine.
Yeah. The moment they're saying that the moment that they fucking stopped this guy, they were no longer operating as cops, and therefore doing like normal cop shit is all of a sudden considered aggravated kidnapping. You have to understand that, like, technically what cops are doing is kidnapping every single time. They're just fucking doing it with legal jurisdiction. So, like, because they decided after the fact that they were no longer operating as cops, they're slapping him with murder charges and kidnapping charges as well. That's it. Just understand that, though. Like, every single time a cop murders someone, it's still fucking murder, okay? Murder in the first degree, okay? It's just that because they're cops, the law allows them to do that. That's what it is. That's the whole point here.
Them, and then the aggravated part of it is either you're in possession of a deadly weapon at the time, or you cause physical injury at the time. And the idea is even
not how the law works, ... Brother, I'm not even talking about the law. When you fucking shoot someone with a gun, that's you still killed them, okay? You still fucking killed them. If you shoot someone you shoot someone in the back, you magged up someone that is running away from you, if you're not a cop, in most circumstances, you're going to jail. Even if they literally came into your house and then they ran out of your house and you shot them, and there are cases of this even in fucking places like Texas where castle doctrine is supposed to be the law of the land, you can still and very much will go to fucking jail. The only people that don't actually go to jail when they do that is cops. Because they have a Supreme Court protected, constitutionally protected, Supreme Court interpreted legal, like extra legal set of rules that apply to them. Yeah, the aggravated upsell for having a weapon while arresting literally means that they got uncopped in that circumstance, which is interesting to think about because it's interesting to think about. Oh, the chatter said now the law works. Oh, my bad. I misread it. Sorry. What do you mean they stopped being cops when they stopped them? Yeah, they just uncopped them, even though they were doing cop shit, okay? Like, what they did in this circumstance is what cops do all the fucking time. Like, as much as I love shitting on, sovereign citizens and, like, all these fucking people, okay? They're technically correct when they say, are you detaining me for no reason, okay? When a cop stops you, they should have good fucking reason to stop you. Because you're actively in the process of, like, violating some serious fucking laws. And God forbid you get uncopped after the fact for some of your actions. This is what is supposed to happen. This is what's supposed to happen. This is the normal thing that's supposed to happen. In a country where we have, like, actual rules, this is what's supposed to happen. You're supposed to go to jail for behaving like this and doing this kind of shit. It's wild that it does not happen more frequently.
In an officer-involved situation, at some point, the detention, which might have started out as a lawful one, becomes an unlawful one, and then that person is being unlawfully confined, and that's kidnapping. And if either bodily injury ensues or weapons are involved, then it becomes aggravated kidnapping. 2
charges of official misconduct, 1 charge of official oppression.
Yes.
What is that? So
official misconduct is whenever an official intentionally exercises authority that is unauthorized by law in the performance of their official duties. And there's another part of that same statute that also says if you are under a duty imposed by law to do something and you don't, then through your inaction you are also engaged in that same offense. And, law enforcement officials that are on duty have an affirmative obligation to prevent unlawful detention and unlawful injuries, as well as it's unlawful to do it actively as well.
Listen, I have covered in the team this year. You see Shimon over there, Sarah Seidner here as well. We have been on a number of these scenes, unfortunately. We've covered a number of these stories. Sadly. At this point, to see officers charged with second-degree murder and aggravated assault, that is highly unusual. Again, as I said, the family wanted first-degree murder, but second-degree murder, that's serious stuff. Why? Does that speak to what's in the video? Go on.
It does indeed, Don. I think you're exactly right. No, this is serious business. These are extremely serious charges. You're correct in saying that these are more serious than in your typical officer-involved fatality case. But I think after everyone sees the video, I don't think there'll be any questions about those charges.
Several things that I wanted to make sure, points that I wanted to make sure, and I wrote them down here. Do you anticipate charges against more people? Because we know there are fire department members as well who are involved in this.
So that's something that I was also going to be handling at the press conference, but I'll say this, that the investigation is ongoing, and the fact that there are certain charges announced today does not preclude that there might be other charges later on.
So let's talk about the video. Is it body cam video? Is it from a stationary position? What
Both.
is it? Both.
Both.
How many different sources of video do you have?
Multiple sources of video, and I think it's fair to say that when the public release occurs, and I think that will be soon, people will be able to see the entire incident from beginning to end, including the first encounter and then the second encounter in which the serious injuries occurred.
So how much is there? How long are these videos?
Well, I mean, I think what is going to be released, and this is really a question better directed to the city of Memphis, but my understanding is that when the city of Memphis releases the video, it'll be somewhere in the neighborhood of an hour.
Of an hour, okay. Mm-hmm. So it was, will it be redacted or edited in any way?
Yeah. There have to be redactions, Don, to protect the privacy of any civilians, individuals who were not on-duty city employees that were involved. So you may see a face blurred. If someone mentions a phone number, you may hear a bleep, but the redactions will be limited and only directed towards protecting the privacy of third parties.
I have a source that is close to the investigation, says that the video will be released tomorrow and that there are negotiations between your office and with the Memphis Police Department to try to make sure that you have this all in order and you want to coordinate it.
Again,
Why the fuck are they hyping up the video so much? It's kind of weird. It's the entire situation is weird. It's weird because justice is rarely ever swift in the case of police brutality, which is precisely the reason why people are like genuinely worried about what might happen. Like the fact that the closest analog to like a white cop that I can think of, and obviously I don't have everything in the back of my mind and encyclopedia knowledge on police brutality, but it's Derek Chauvin, and even then there was like significantly more pushback and defenses early on. Like the police department did not immediately fire Derek Chauvin and charge him with murder. If you recall, they actually tried to hide all the footage as best as they could, but there were too many onlookers. There were literally like 40 different camera angles of this this murder in broad daylight. I understand what you say about cops, but why do you always generalize them? The same way someone can have a preconception of a race or anything in their life that also applies to cops? No, man. I mean, I joke around about how like there is such a thing as cop phrenology and that you are ACAB, which means you're assigned cop at birth and whatever. But like, that's not the case. This is a job. Okay. When I'm criticizing police, I'm criticizing a job. I'm criticizing the concepts, what they are supposed to do versus what they actually are intended to do and what they are theoretically not doing. Okay. You weren't born a cop. We need to stop the bad discourse, even if it's one single person, which it obviously isn't, but the generalized 800K is still a preconception. By the way, chat, don't be mad at me by a text on the internet. People say, I'm going to be as charitable and as nice as possible, okay, to you, chatter, and try to explain something to you that I hope you will understand. When people say ACAB, all cops are bastards, all cops are bad, all cops are bad, whatever, they're not talking about human beings that are otherwise nice people, potentially. Maybe they are. Some of them probably are. Some of them even probably started the profession under false pretenses, okay? But cops as a profession, police as a profession, protect and serve the interests of capital. And in that process, there are plenty of unjustifiable laws that you would have a moral issue with, okay, personally, on an individual basis, that they uphold in the violent ways that they uphold them. Okay? So while they are in the process of being a cop, while they're doing cop shit, when they have the badge on, they are behaving in a bad way. Okay? By design, their job requires them, and urges them to behave in a violent manner. So even if you're an otherwise good person, when you're a cop, when you have the badge on, you are doing shit that cops do and upholding unjustifiable laws. Okay? There are so many examples of this, like cops going up and like arresting an old lady who is feeding homeless people. Like, no one would ever consider that to be a normal or a good thing. But cops are doing that because it's a part of their fucking job. That's what that means, okay? Now, on top of that, the system also demands they be violent because they are the authority. They're supposed to be upholding laws, okay? Some of which we all understand are unjustifiable and inhumane and cruel, okay? Now, in order to do that, they have to be violent. They're exercising the state's monopoly on violence. And while they're doing that, when they do things like that, the state also protects them. So they're not actually following the book like a normal human being. They're behaving in a way that where they are above the law. They're doing things, just like I mentioned, that no human being would consider to be normal or good or kind as a part of their job. And the state expects them to do that, and the state defends them when they do that. Qualified immunity is one example of this. There are many Supreme Court cases where the system basically has legalized their murders, okay, their murder charges, and have codified their lack of accountability. Cops have no duty to actually protect the citizens. This is the law. Technically, if they see a crime happening and they do nothing, like in Uvalde, they will not be charged for it. There's no expectation. Zero. That is the law. A cop, however, can kill someone. Whether they are holding a gun to the cop's face, or whether they are unarmed, or whether they are unarmed and running away, a cop can still legally get away with murder as long as they claim that they had a genuine threat for their own safety, or they had a genuine assessment there where they were fearful for the safety of others. That is also codified. That is institutionalized, and it's completely fucking legal. I cannot imagine if you, like, for 1 second, I'm not the type of person who says, like, we don't need an organization that is going to solve crimes. We don't need an organization such as policing, okay, that will maintain the presence of law and order or whatever in a civilized society. Of course, I believe that there is always going to be need for detective work. I believe that there's always going to be need for a force like that, whether it's democratically organized or not, okay? I'm not saying that, like, you know, cops or police as an institution or the theoretical purpose of policing is just fraught, okay? I'm not saying that. However, the way that it currently works in society is not the way that it's supposed to work in theory, okay? And if you, for a brief moment, just stop thinking about these people as like police and all of the other social conditioning that teaches you that what they're doing is good, all the movies that you've seen, and think about them like a band of untrained, oftentimes right-wing, overwhelmingly right-wing, unaccountable bullies with all the gear that you would normally see on a fucking occupying force, bullying people that they have genuine disdain for, working at the behest of the wealthy. Well, that system is completely fucked. That's insane. There's no way to look at that process and go, no, I actually do love that these mentally stunted psychopaths with military gear can roam the fucking streets and they're completely untrained, and the only kind of training that they get is actually to escalate to do violence, and then they have no accountability from the legal structures, and they get to do this with our taxpayer dollars. Well, none of that makes sense. And they are the only people that have genuine fucking union protection and also the benefits of, like, living in a fucking Nordic style social democracy. That's wild. That's just legal. That's a legal gang. And it's one that does so much harm. So no, I'm not generalizing every single person that chooses to wear the badge or whatever. I don't know how they are in their personal life, even though, you know, look up the self-reported numbers of domestic violence in police. The last time a study was ever allowed to be conducted in the police force, and you will find out that 40% of cops are beating their partners, which is, again, a self-reported study from the 90s. The last time they were allowed to be studied. Okay? But ultimately, it's still absolutely, the things that I just mentioned are still absolutely present and are at the heart of why there are these issues that keep happening over and over again. Yeah, I agree with that. It's good debate in anywhere in the world, even in Brazil. Like you said, I think the base of the problem goes all the way from the top of the system. They are cops under a capitalist organization of the economy, are there to protect and serve the interests of capital. That's it.
Again, information that I think will be best discussed at the press conference, but I can definitely say that we've been in constant consultation between our office and the city of Memphis, and that the release of the video will occur relatively soon after the conclusion of my press conference to the formal announcement of the charges.
Why is it taking so long?
Well, we wanted to make sure that the video did not compromise the investigation. So if you're going to be interviewing suspects, you do not want them to see the video and then possibly tailor their statements to the video. You want them speaking to law enforcement, you know, without knowledge of what we've got. Similarly, you don't want non-suspect witnesses to start testifying about what they remembered seeing on TV as opposed to what they actually witnessed with their own eyes. That's not unusual. That's not typical to this case. It's just the general rule.
Yeah. One of the producers is speaking to me. I cannot hear you. Can you repeat that so I can ask the district attorney while he's here? Any other? Oh, yeah. Yes, that isn't related to the video, but I was going to ask you that anyways. Will there be other charges on top of this? Can the charges escalate?
Oh, well, so both with respect to other charges against the persons that have already been charged or charges against other persons, that's always an option, and that could always happen later on. I will say this, the investigation is ongoing, and nothing we've done today precludes any further charges.
Nothing today precludes any further charges. And why haven't we learned the names of the fire department folks and who they are? Why don't we know anything about them?
That is a good question. I think it might be better directed to the city of Memphis. We're not charging them today, so we're only going to be discussing the people that were charged today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Don.
So these cops are a part of, as far as I understand, a Scorpion unit, they call it. Memphis Police Department created a Scorpion unit, and here's a man talking about his experience with them, where he talked about he complained about the Scorpion unit, which is created to deal with street crime. You know how these fucking units work. It's like the gun violence task force in Baltimore. For those of you who are unfamiliar with that, there is a wonderful recreation that's basically of a documentary on HBO called "We Run the City." Like a lot of times these special units are like aggressive, extra violent. Yes. And often are, you know, behaving in even additionally brutal ways, and they're very corrupt. But yeah, the video is the movie, or not the movie, but like the short series on HBO is called "We Run the City." I think it's probably the best piece of anti-police agitprop I've ever watched. It's made by the same guy that made The Wire, David Simon. We own the city, not we run the city. Sorry. Anyway, here, let's hear what this man's.
McKinney says the same Scorpion unit stopped him January 3rd, 4 days before Nichols was pulled over.
I actually read it on the back of their vest. It said MPD Scorpion unit.
It was at this Marathon gas station at Ridgeway in Knight Arnold as he was catching a ride with a friend.
All I heard is freeze, get out the car. Put your MF hands up before I blow your heads off. Both of you, get out the car. So put your hands up. So I put my hands up, and one of the officers proceeded to come to the car, and he physically pulled me out by my shoulder with a gun no more than a foot away from my head.
He says the officers in unmarked cars would never say why they had been stopped. He took this picture of the stop. They eventually asked who the drugs belonged to.
I said, man, I just went across the street to get a pizza, and I'm on my way back to the house. He's like, well, who finna ride for this pound? I said, well, can we call my lawyer? And the officers, he yelled out, well, this ain't court, this ain't a time for lawyer. I was like, man, I just came to get a pizza. So he was like, man, we just playing, it ain't a pound in a car. And he let me walk off.
He showed us his call log when he says he placed 2 phone calls to MPD's internal affairs to complain about the officers' forcefulness, but he says he still hasn't heard back. Then he saw the picture of the 5 officers fired in the Tyre Nichols case.
I was like, that's them. I said, that's crazy, that's them. I said, now they done really hurt somebody. This could have been prevented if the internal affairs took action like I was asking them to do.
We asked Memphis police about the stop involving Cornell McKinney and are also waiting to hear back.
Statement from the president, like, understand that there would be no suspension of pay or no desk job if there was more interest for violent fascism. Okay, the only reason why they get put on desk duty for a little bit is to, like, you know, give the liberals something to chew on. Their job, they don't give a fuck. Their job is to do this. This is what they're supposed to do. Statement from the President Joe, Jim Crow Joe, Mr. Crime Bill himself on the Tyre Nichols case. Jill and I extend our heartfelt condolences to the family of Tyre Nichols. Jim Crow Joe, Mr. Crime Bill himself, who fucking ran around and sucked every police cock he could over the course of the past fucking year or 2, talking about how we're going to make sure that all the COVID funds that went to cops who were dying of COVID, ironically, go figure, you know, is actually totally fine. We're going to make sure that we even increase the funding to the police. You know, that guy, oh man, he's so sad. As America's grieved, the Department of Justice conducts this investigation and state authorities continue their work. I join Tyre's family in calling for peaceful protest. Outrage is understandable, but violence is never acceptable. Yeah, everyone is gearing up, dude. Everyone is gearing up. If that kind of, dude, look, I'm not inciting for violence, or I'm not inciting for riots. I'm not going to ever say anything like that. But goddamn, dude, what a demonstration that, like, these people are just terrified of what is to come, knowing full well. And I have a very cool way of avoiding all of that, okay? It's called don't let cops murder people, okay? It's super simple. It's super obvious. But, like, if you're that scared of, like, storefronts burning down, here's a crazy idea. Don't let cops murder people, okay? And also prosecute them or prosecute more of them so that other cops think twice before murdering someone. Riots are the voice of the unheard, okay? It's like the final fucking thing that citizens do when they're pushed to the fucking brink. It's just the truth. Property damage and destruction in that of that like might make you feel scared, worried, okay? But it happens because people don't have anything else. People don't have any other, they don't see progress or understandable demands that they make of their government. For the people that are violent enforcers in their own communities that get to do this and be protected and are paid by their own fucking tax dollars, man. Yeah. That's why I called Congress on to send George Floyd Justice and Policing Act to my desk. When they didn't, I signed an executive order that included stricter use of force standards. They did nothing, dude. The Biden admin did nothing.
The pain you're experiencing. But let me reaffirm, we are here to pursue truth and justice, realizing that we should not be here. Simply put, this shouldn't have happened. I've been policing for more than 30 years. I've devoted my life to this profession.
Oh my God.
And I'm grieved. Frankly, I'm shocked. I'm sickened by what I saw and what we've learned through our extensive and thorough investigation. I've seen the video, and as DA Mulroy stated, you will too. In a word, it's absolutely appalling. Let me be clear. What happened here does not at all reflect proper policing. This was wrong. This was criminal. The depth and breadth of the charges announced today speaks to the deliberate and thorough investigation that this case has received. And our work is not finished. We continue to pursue every lead. Justice demands it. And our agency exists so that guilt shall not escape, nor innocence suffer. To that end, I want to publicly thank our agents, our forensic scientists, our support staff, and our entire team around this state. They worked diligently to expedite this case. We've worked as hard as we could and as quickly as we could to provide a thorough, independent, unbiased investigative record to allow DA Mulroy and his team to make the most informed decision they could regarding these charges. I also want to thank the Memphis Police Department and the city leaders for their cooperation in this case, which I want to stress is ongoing at this time. Thank you.
We'll take a few questions.
DA Mulroy, I was wondering if Shimon broke the best from CNN.
And Whitland, let's make sure that one at a time.
One and then two. Okay.
And you say the investigation's ongoing. Does that include other officers that were alluded to in C.J. Davis's address last night, and also could it also involve the other EMTs and personnel from the fire department?
Nothing we do today or did today precludes the addition of any further charges regarding any of the people that you mentioned. We're still actively reviewing everything. Yes.
Sir, thank you. Shimon Brokers from CNN. We have not heard from the police chief generally give a description of what occurred in the initial stop, any kind of a timeline of what exactly occurred on that day. So I'm hoping perhaps you or the director there can explain to us, just give us as much as possible a timeline of the events. He was stopped. Was this a legal stop? Why was he stopped? And then sort of continue to explain perhaps what happened in the moments after that, as much as possible.
Right. I don't want to go into too much detail. And I suspect that all of your answers along those lines will, be forthcoming once you have a chance to view the video for yourself. I know that a lot of this has already been publicly released, but there was an initial traffic stop. We won't comment right now on the presence or absence of legality of the stop, but there was a traffic stop, and there was an initial altercation involving several officers and Mr. Nichols. Pepper spray was deployed. The suspect, or not the suspect, Mr. Nichols, fled on foot. There was another altercation at a nearby location at which the serious injuries were experienced by Mr. Nichols. After some period of time of waiting around afterwards, he was taken away by an ambulance. Beyond that, I don't really think we should go into any further details.
So there was a delay in a call. The police delayed calling the ambulance for.
There was an elapsed period of time, but I believe that if you watch the video, you'll be able to make that judgment for yourself. Erica, do you want?
He says suspect. He's so used to it, dude. He's just the suspect, perpetrator. I mean, the victim. Shit.
The serious injuries were experienced by Mr. Nichols. After some period of time of waiting around afterwards, he was taken away by an ambulance. Beyond that, I don't really think we should go into any further details.
So there was a delay in a call. The police delayed calling the ambulance for.
There was an elapsed period of time, but I believe that if you watch the video, you'll be able to make that judgment for yourself. Erica, do you want? I'm trying to.
They're on autopilot. They have to do passive voice, dude. This is because the reality is, this is just like every other fucking instance, man. I'm sorry. I'm sure this is uniquely brutal, okay? But many of these cases are just as fucking awful. Maybe it doesn't have the personal malicious slant associated with it, like the violence of using your fucking hands to brutally murder someone. But The reality is, the defense here could have been applied in the same fucking way, okay? Because in many instances, it is the same.
Give everyone a chance.
But is there a reason the police chief...
Ellie's Preston, CBS News. Is it known if Tyre Nichols had previously known these former officers?
We have no information to disclose about that at this time. I don't know why Chief Davis isn't here. Anything else?
Dean Lori, can you explain, is it just body camera videos, is it dash cam videos, surveillance, what kind of videos?
Well, the actual release will be up to the city of Memphis. My understanding is that it'll be a combination of pole cam video, skycop video, and body cam video.
We'll take one more question. One more question.
And there will be a review of specialized units within the Memphis Police Department. 2 questions. First, were these officers member of the organized crime unit? And second, will your office be involved in that investigation?
Well, so I've read in the newspaper that Chief Davis has announced a review of those specialized units. I think that's a good idea. I commend Chief Davis for doing that. I think Chief Davis is committed to, trying to do whatever she can to learn lessons from this incident. I don't contemplate that our office would be involved in that review. I think that's...
Were they members of the organized crime unit?
Scorpion.
So I think it's already been reported publicly that the Scorpion unit was involved.
Thank you.
Is that it? That's it. Okay. I'm being told that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you please tell us the list of the aggravated kidnapping charges?
To explain this?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Well,
I don't
we've
mind
just
doing that.
heard
explaining
from-
the laws, I don't think at all.
Hold on just a moment. Let's listen back in.
Yeah. So, all right. So, kidnapping is any unlawful confinement of another, which substantially restrains someone's liberty. At a certain point in the sequence of events, it is our view that this, if it was a legal detention to begin with, it certainly became illegal at a certain point, and it was an unlawful detention. The aggravated nature of the charge is because if that kidnapping resulted in bodily injury, that's one grounds for saying that it is aggravated kidnapping. If the persons involved in that unlawful restraint of liberty possessed weapons, that is another ground for saying that the kidnapping was aggravated. Do you want me to explain the other charges as well?
Yeah, just say that they uncopped them. You know how, like I say, they undoctored someone? What the fuck was it? Like the fucking guy in the UK, Andrew Wakefield. It's that's what it is. It's like every instance of a police doing like normal police work that ends up with like an escalation of use of force and violence is just doing police work, right? It's just that they post hoc dispoliced them, unpoliced them. So now the things that they're doing that were otherwise normal are considered not normal and illegal, very illegal, as a matter of fact. A lesson to be learned from that process, hopefully, for many cops.
Well, or okay, all right. So official misconduct is when any public official acting part of their official duties intentionally or knowingly acts in a way, exercises authority that is unauthorized by law. Right? So that's an affirmative statement, an affirmative act of official misconduct. At the same time, law enforcement officials who are on duty are also under an affirmative duty to prevent official misconduct and to accurately report information to any medical personnel that show up. And through inaction, when there is a duty imposed by law, that could also be a separate ground for charging official misconduct. Official oppression is a related statute. It's not exactly the same. There is some overlap, but it's not perfect overlap. But it is basically some sort of, by an official, knowing mistreatment in the course of carrying out their official duties. aggravated assault, I think, is fairly obvious, and under the laws of Tennessee, second-degree murder is a knowing killing.
All right. Thank you.
How long the video will it be redacted?
Well, we have just learned that 5 former Memphis police officers today indicted, arrested, and charged with second-degree murder and a number of other charges that you just heard. They are members of the Scorpion unit, which was put together to fight violent crime on the street. We heard from the director of the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, David Roush, that they are there to pursue truth and justice, and that he was shocked and sickened by what he saw on the...
Dog, they put this together 2 years ago, specifically for the like the rise in violent crime narrative. It's like one of those fucking places. It's one of those instances where like that kind of crime is on the rise narrative turns into like real action from police departments that of course aren't turning around and like conducting an internal investigation in the way that they behave, but instead immediately putting funds into being extra violent.
These multiple videos that are expected to be released Friday at 6 p.m. The police chief in Memphis saying just last night that she expects that the community will feel outrage. They are bracing for protests. Make no doubt about it. Let's bring in our senior investigative correspondent, Catherine Herridge. And Catherine, these are serious charges.
Yes.
Also heard them lay out that they were all charged with the same crimes, all 5 of them. And then in the words of one of the officials, their actions of all of them resulted in the death of Tyre Nichols.
That's right. And on top of that, we have an overlay, Nora, which is the launching of a federal civil rights.
Where you at, lady? You want to come talk more about how like Afghan children should be abducted by white American families? We have CBS News' very own Afghan child abduction defender. So come talk about this shit. Psychotic, reactionary piece of shit. That's how you know the media is so fucking corrupt and awful.
Rights investigation by the Justice Department as well as the FBI. They haven't told us what charges are under consideration, but the most similar or analogous case would be that of George Floyd and the officer Derek.
She was on a 2-parter series by CBS News, literally defending the kidnapping of an Afghan child done by the Mass family in Virginia, okay? Even when the federal government's like, hey, that's a kidnapping, you can't do that. For those of you who weren't here yesterday.
Chauvin, he pleaded guilty to violating George Floyd's constitutional rights, and that included the right to be free of excessive use of force by police officers, as well as that constitutional right to due process.
Stand by, because Elise Preston has been covering this case, has been there all week, and just came out of that press conference. And Elise, very significant. Talk about that concern. Why did they choose Friday night at 6 p.m. to release this video, which we're told is about an hour in length, multiple different cameras, and is expected to provoke protests?
Well, so we just heard from District Attorney Steve Mulroy, and he said that, one, with the video, the Memphis Police Department, they are the custodian of that video. So the video will be released by the police department, by the city. We do know that this video, they are still kind of working through investigations, right? We do know that with the officers being charged, I wonder why they have enough to go on right now to charge them with that. But the DA has been concerned pretty much all week that they are waiting to make sure that the case is completely tight before they move forward. So that is a concern. Another concern is just safety. I spoke to a city council chief chair yesterday, Nora, and he said, I asked him, what is it like here in Memphis 2 weeks after Tyre Nichols has died? And he said that it is like putting your hands on a combustible can and waiting for it to release. You know that you're going to have to release your hand, so you're just kind of waiting waiting to see what you can kind of get together before you do release that. So I think right now, city officials, city leaders, they are just bracing people for what is to come. You mentioned that video statement placed on Twitter last night about 10:30 here local time from the chief, and she told people that you are going to see things that are troubling. She called that video inhumane. She said that it was heinous, and so I think they right now are just trying to prepare.
If there was any honesty in this, cops would provide. I mean, cops would never obviously do that, and their presence is always going to be threatening. But in a normal world, cops would provide protection to the protesters, and not the fucking Kyle Rittenhouses who are currently at home polishing their weapons, hoping that they can get a confirmed legal kill. We'll see.
The public, both here in Memphis and across the country, Nora.
Yeah, I mean, some dire warnings ahead of this video release. We are learned today that these 5 former officers were part of a Scorpion unit, as it is called, a group of some 50 officers that was put together to fight violent street crime. The other thing that the district attorney, Steve Mulroy, saying today was that
into Marxism, your normal world still having cops is your worst take. Yes, I am not an anarchist. I am not an anarchist. I believe that, yes, some form of policing is a necessity for society to function. Okay? While I understand that most crime can be solved by solving material inequalities, there are still plenty of instances where there needs to be a group of democratically organized people. If you want to do it like an anarchist commune style situation, democratically organized people upholding democratically voted on laws that everyone finds justifiable, okay? That also solve crimes and detain people. There's always going to be a need for detainment. The issue that I have with police is that they work at the behest of capital, okay? The issue that I have with police is that they are white supremacists working at the behest of a white supremacist system. The issue that I have with police is not that there's a group of people who are supposed to be protecting and serving everybody, okay? The theoretical concept is fraught. It's bullshit. It's marketing. We all recognize that. But ultimately, I still believe that there's a need for, serial killers, rapists, that sort of thing, or criminals that are engaging in crime, to be caught and police to do detective work. You know what I mean? Like, I want that. I don't believe that you can basically stop all of those crimes from stopping altogether, but with one fell sweep of material restitution. I believe that all matter of governance is going to be inherently authoritarian, and I have no problem with that. Like, I don't. I think that I believe in order to a certain degree. I believe that there are going to be people that want to violate the norms that will allow for society to flourish. Okay, people that take advantage of it. Why the fuck do you think I still have an oppressive iron thumb that I rule over this chat with? I try to make this as democratic as possible. This is such a microcosm of like social formations, and it's so stupid because the stakes are much lower. So I'm not making an exact analogy here, but like, I want this to be as democratic as possible, right? I want everyone to just talk as much as they want to, but I still discipline motherfuckers because people take advantage of that. There's always going to be people who have antisocial personality disorders, which we cannot currently medicate or have no understanding of how to fucking medicate and rehabilitate adequately. Like, there's still going to be people that take advantage of your good nature, okay? But that does not destroy the need for some group of people that you agree with that is democratically assigned to do the enforcement.
He met with the Nichols family before these charges were announced. Second-degree murder, aggravated assault, aggravated kidnapping with a weapon. And he said that the family seemed good with these charges. I know you've spoken with the family. What have they said?
So we have not been able to speak with the family just yet. We are waiting to speak with them in a few moments, but I can tell you that the family said that they were waiting for these charges to come, that would be justice for them, but the fight is not over. They want to see a conviction here. I can tell you, Nora, I spoke with the mother, and she is just, as you can imagine, shaken. When we were walking to our interview, she grabbed my hand. She was shaking. She was weak. She said, "I'm tired, but I have to keep going because I have to get justice for my son." Tyre Nichols was the youngest of her 4 kids, and so she is devastated, as you can imagine. Nora, I'd like to go back, though, to DA Mulroy, right? Because I just want to paint a little background on him contextually. He is a new DA here in Shelby County. He has been in office for about 5 months, and one of his campaign promises was a justice review unit. Mulroy is a former federal civil rights attorney. He was a Shelby County commissioner here in the area, and he has been very vocal for years about police reform and police misconduct. So with this justice review unit that he had campaigned on, part of their responsibility was to independently investigate police misconduct charges, Nora.
So he is following through on that. Elise, Preston, thank you. You have been doing incredible reporting on the ground there in Memphis. Let's bring in Ricky Kleeman, our CBS News legal analyst. Ricky, walk us through these very serious charges.
Serious indeed, Nora. I think it's very important to start with the fact that the reason for second-degree murder rather than first-degree murder, because people will be saying, well, why isn't it first-degree murder? First-degree murder has premeditation, whereas second-degree murder is intentional. And what you have here is the underlying factor of this aggravated assault that continued to continue. And under Tennessee law, that is the written law as well as case law, what we wind up with.
No, I don't think they'd be charged as quickly if they were white, okay? I don't believe that, but I don't know. I said it already. I've never seen cops get charged this fucking swiftly, okay? I've never seen cops get fired this swiftly. I've never seen cops get charged with murder this swiftly, even before the fucking footage comes out. It only took a month for the cops to release the footage. Like, it's bananas. I've never seen a cop get fired before the video comes out. Genuinely good DA? No, I don't. I mean, see, the thing is with Memphis, like, this police department is, I need to see how bad it is, okay, for me to make an assessment. I'm sorry. I can't make an assessment without seeing the footage. Because, like, there are a bunch of other underlying factors at play here. Memphis police being, like, more liberal as an institution than other police, which still is fucking awful and brutal, as we saw, but because they're still cops. But, like, is that a level of accountability that created this immediate response? The DA is like a reformist DA. Is that a level of accountability that this situation created? And that's why this was swift. That's what, no such thing as a good DA. No, there is such a thing as a good DA. Okay, please stop. Yes, there are. Yes, there are people who are unironically in the interest of, like, policing the police. Okay, Kamala Harris was not a good DA. No. But there are district attorneys who are reformists, who definitely want to prosecute police, who also do end up prosecuting some police, and then they get they destroyed over it, okay? Larry Krasner is a good example of this. I wouldn't say George Gascon is a good example of this, and I don't know about Chesabudin enough, but, you know, ultimately, yes, you have severe limitations of the DA. It requires you to be an awful, soulless motherfucker, but at least you can use a fraction of your power on policing the police, okay? So anyone that does that is good enough in my book, is a good starting point.
Is the intent to inflict serious bodily injury from the aggravated assault. If it looks like what we expect this video to look like from every description we have been given, that it really does become intentional conduct. And if they are convicted of second-degree murder, you're dealing with a Class A felony that has a punishment of 15 to 60 years. Serious indeed. That's really the lifetime of any of these pleas if it goes toward the maximum.
And what about, many people have been asking about that specific charge of aggravated kidnapping with a weapon. Explain that.
Well, it's highly unusual because, of course, we think
because it's cops doing cop shit.
Who detain a suspect, whether they are acting lawfully or unlawfully in the case of a beating, as is alleged here, that would not become criminal conduct, let alone a kidnapping, which is a false imprisonment. It's a detention. But as the district attorney just explained, he felt, or the grand jury felt, which is more accurate, that what had happened here was, even if the original detention were lawful, that eventually...
I've never seen someone get hit with that. We've seen cops get hit with like manslaughter, second-degree murder. I've never seen a cop get discopped. The moment that you look at like a detainment as which cop? All 5 of them. The moment that you literally fucking consider them to be not cops is the point of interaction that they had with the victim. That's insane.
The conduct made it...
Are they trying to protect the police as an institution by saying they ain't cops? Are you kidding me? This is literally, if this goes through, this is like, this could be an issue that goes all the way to the Supreme Court. The police unions will most likely wait a couple years until, not a couple years, but like wait a little bit until they can launch an assault on the institution that allowed this to be considered unlawful detainment. And it will go directly to the Supreme Court, and then it's legal precedent in the other way, once again, because you need to understand something. The moment that you say a cop is no longer a cop when they do something illegal, you just literally, you took away like a century worth of legal precedent that allows police to murder people unjustifiably. All of a sudden, a cop is no longer a cop if they, and could be charged with unlawful detainment if they put handcuffs on someone that did not deserve to be handcuffed, which, by the way, that's how it's supposed to be. That's how it's supposed to be. Yeah, you should have the legal right to be able to defend yourself in a court of law against a cop who decided to fucking arrest you unjustifiably. That's kidnapping, motherfucker. You can't do that.
Unlawful. And when you have this kind of serious bodily injury, in addition to the deadly weapon, because of course the police officers are armed, the grand jury felt that aggravated kidnapping was appropriate. Class B felony, long imprisonment, 8 to 30 years.
All right, Ricky Kleeman, thank you for joining us. Just should note, too, this just in, a White House official saying the President of the United States has also been briefed on this Tyre Nichols case.
Before I move on, here is Tyre. This is the memoriam. This is who Tyre Nichols was, a talented and dedicated skateboarder with so much life left to live. He didn't deserve to be tragically taken away from his family and community. We will continue to fight for accountability for you, Tyre.